Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're jumping into one of the most game-changing periods in all of human history, the Age of Exploration. This is the era that literally redrew the world map, created massive empires, and connected everyone in ways that were totally unimaginable before. So let's start with this. What if the most valuable thing in the world wasn't gold, but a simple spice? It sounds kind of wild to us now, right? But this one question is what kicked off a whole global revolution. Back in the 15th century, for Europeans, spices, we're talking cloves, pepper, nutmeg, they were often worth more than their weight in gold. And believe me, people were willing to risk absolutely everything to get their hands on them. Okay, so our story really kicks off in 15th century Europe, and it all starts with this massive craving for Asian spices. You gotta remember, this is way before refrigerators, so spices weren't just a fancy little extra for your food. No, they were essential. They were how you preserved meat to get through the winter, and they were the only thing that made all that heavily salted food actually taste good. The demand was just huge. But here's the catch. Getting those spices from, say, the Spice Islands in Indonesia all the way to a kitchen in London was a massive headache. It was this long, complicated journey, and the whole thing was locked down by a series of middlemen. Think of it like a chain. Muslim traders controlled the first leg over land. Then Italian merchants, especially from Venice, took over the Mediterranean part. And at every single stop, the price got jacked up. So by the time a pinch of pepper actually made it to European dinner table, it was astronomically expensive. So naturally, European kings, queens, and merchants were getting pretty desperate. They had to find a way to cut out all those middlemen and find a direct sea route to Asia. And their motivation? Well, it boiled down to what historians often call the 3 Gs. First, you've got gold, the promise of unbelievable wealth. Second, glory. The fame, the prestige for yourself and your country. And third, God, this powerful drive to spread Christianity across the globe. Now, wanting to find a new route is one thing, but actually doing it, that's another story. This wasn't just some pipe dream. It was made possible by a whole wave of incredible new technologies that basically gave sailors the guts and the gear to sail off the edge of the known map and into the great unknown. A huge piece of the puzzle was cartography, the science of map making. It absolutely exploded during the Renaissance. Scholars were digging up all this forgotten knowledge from ancient Greece, like the work of Ptolemy, and it sparked a total revolution in how maps were made. Suddenly, explorers had charts that were way more accurate, giving them a much clearer picture of the world they were about to sail into. And it wasn't just maps, it was like this perfect storm of new gadgets and gear. You had the caravel, this new type of ship that was smaller, faster, and, get this, could actually sail against the wind. Game changer. Then you had better tools like the magnetic compass and the astrolabe, which made it easier to figure out where you were and where you were going. And the secret weapon? The printing press. It meant new, updated maps could be copied and spread around super fast and cheap. So knowledge was no longer just for a select few. Okay, so you've got the motivation, the 3 Gs. You've got the tools, the new ships and maps. What happens next? A whole generation of incredibly brave, or maybe just incredibly crazy, explorers set sail on journeys that would change everything we thought we knew about our own planet. And things happened fast. In just 30 years, a handful of expeditions totally blew the old maps to pieces. You have Columbus in 1492, who, while looking for Asia, bumps right into the Americas. Total accident. Then, just 6 years later, Vasco da Gama actually pulls off the original mission, sailing all the way around Africa to get to India. And then, the big one, Magellan's crew, between 1519 and 1522, does what everyone thought was impossible. They circumnavigate the entire globe. But here's a really fascinating bit of context. The Europeans weren't the only ones with this kind of technology. In fact, they weren't even the best. Decades before Columbus and his 3 little ships, China had this unbelievable fleet under Admiral Zheng He. Just look at these numbers. We're talking over 300 ships, some of them massive, with a crew of nearly 30,000 people. They were masters of the Indian Ocean, but then policy changed. The emperor decided to look inward, and the fleet was dismantled. It's truly one of history's biggest what-ifs. What if they had kept going? And we really can't overstate how dangerous these trips were. This wasn't a cruise. Magellan's journey is a perfect, brutal example. Out of 270 men who set out, only 18 made it back. It was 3 years of hell. Starvation, sickness, fighting. Magellan himself didn't even make it. He was killed along the way. So yeah, they proved the world was round, but the price for that knowledge was just immense. So these journeys weren't just about drawing new lines on a map. When Columbus made landfall in the Americas, it set off a chain reaction, a massive global collision of two worlds that had been separated for thousands of years. It was an exchange of plants, animals, ideas, and, tragically, something much, much deadlier. This whole process is what we now call the Columbian Exchange, and it changed life on every single continent, forever. From the Old World, Europe, Africa, and Asia, came things that would transform the Americas: horses, cattle, sugar, coffee. And coming back the other way, things we can't even imagine living without now: potatoes, tomatoes, corn, chocolate. These foods totally revolutionized European diets and helped populations explode. But like we said, it wasn't just about food. Because the darkest part of this exchange was disease. The people living in the Americas had zero natural immunity to diseases that were common in Europe, like smallpox or the flu. And the result was just catastrophic. It was one of the single greatest population disasters in all of human history. We're talking an estimated 80 to 90% of the Native American population dying in the century and a half after Columbus arrived. It's a number so large, it's honestly hard to even wrap your head around. So this new, interconnected world, forged by exploration and scarred by disease, didn't stay in a state of exchange for long. It evolved, and it evolved quickly. It shifted from exploration and trade to something else entirely: a system of domination, of empire building on a scale the world had never seen. The operating system for these new empires was an economic theory called mercantilism. The core idea was pretty simple and pretty brutal. It was the belief that there's a finite amount of wealth in the world, basically gold and silver, and your country's goal is to get a bigger piece of the pie than anyone else. And how do you do that? Colonies. Colonies weren't partners. They were just resources to be exploited for one reason and one reason only: to make the mother country rich. And this philosophy created a very clear, very ruthless playbook. Step 1, go claim some land. Step 2, extract every valuable resource you can find: gold, silver, sugar, tobacco, you name it. Step 3, use local people or, increasingly, enslaved people from Africa as forced labor. And Step 4, ship all of that wealth back to Europe. This model, as harsh as it was, is what fueled the incredible power and growth of European empires for centuries. So when you zoom out, you realize this isn't just dusty old history. The world we live in right now was forged in this era. Our globalized economy, the foods you eat for dinner, the very languages people speak, and even the massive power imbalances we still see today, you can trace the roots of almost all of it right back to these voyages. And all of this leaves us with a really tough question to chew on, doesn't it? When does a journey of exploration turn into an act of conquest? The line is so often blurry, and it usually depends on who's telling the story. Looking back, we're left with this complicated legacy. On one hand, you have incredible bravery and discovery. On the other, brutal exploitation and suffering. It's a powerful reminder that history and progress is rarely ever a simple story.